The Great Wall of China, the origins, dynasties, and the making of a 13,000-mile dragon epic. Introduction. The Stone Dragon Awakens. Stretching across deserts, mountains, valleys, and plains, winding like a colossal serpent carved into the earth, the Great Wall of China is not merely a structure, it's a living legend. At over 13,000 miles, this massive fortification is one of the most ambitious projects in human history, often referred to as a stone dragon, slumbering across the landscape. But unlike mythical dragons, the Great Wall is real, and its story is even more powerful than the myths that surround it. It is a tale of ambition and fear, of kings and peasants, of blood and stone. It is a story that reveals not just how China sought to defend itself, but how civilizations across history grappled with the idea of security, empire, and survival. To truly understand the wall, we must go back to its fragmented origins, long before it became the mighty dragon of legend. Gi Kitab. China before the wall, fragmented states and fragile barriers. Centuries before China was unified, the land was divided into feudal states, each with its own rulers, armies, and ambitions. This period, known as the Chungkyu Spring and Autumn period and later the Warring States period, was one of constant warfare. Beyond the northern borders lived nomadic tribes like the Xiongnu, who were skilled horsemen and raiders. They launched fast, unpredictable attacks on Chinese villages, stealing livestock, crops, and wealth. To counter these raids, individual states began building rudimentary walls of tampered earth, short fragmented defenses that provided local protection but had no larger unity. These early walls were crude yet practical, piles of earth reinforced with wooden planks, stretching for dozens of miles. Each wall was a symbol of both fear and power, a message that said, "This land is ours and you are not welcome." But as history would prove, no state could defend itself forever. The real transformation came when one man sought to bring all of China under his rule. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who dreamed of immortality in 221 BCE, China changed forever. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, rose to power after defeating rival states. Known for his ruthlessness and ambition, he is remembered as both a visionary and a tyrant. For Qin, unifying China wasn't enough. He wanted to make sure his empire was impenetrable. The Pacific Ocean and Tibetan Plateau shielded much of the country, but the northern frontier remained dangerously exposed to raids. Thus, Qin Shi Huang ordered the connection and expansion of the existing walls built by earlier states. He envisioned one massive continuous barrier, a defense line that would stretch across thousands of miles. This was the birth of what we now call the Great Wall, but ambition has a price. The builders, blood, sweat, and forced labor, the emperor's vision required unimaginable manpower. Records describe hundreds of thousands of workers conscripted for the project, soldiers, peasants, and criminals forced into backbreaking labor. Life on the construction sites was brutal. Workers toiled in remote mountains and deserts, facing blistering heat by day and freezing winds by night. Food was scarce, accidents were common, and exhaustion claimed countless lives. Stories from this time gave the wall its reputation as a graveyard of laborers. Legends even say that dead workers were buried within the wall itself, their bones hidden under layers of earth and stone. While archaeologists haven't found human remains inside the wall, nearby grave pits confirm the devastating human toll. One haunting Chinese legend tells of Meng Jiangnu, a woman whose husband was conscripted to build the wall. When he died from the harsh conditions, she traveled thousands of miles to deliver his winter clothes. Upon learning of his death, she wept so bitterly that part of the wall collapsed, exposing his remains. This story became one of the most enduring symbols of the suffering behind the wall's grandeur. The Han Dynasty, Wall of Silk and Sorrow. When the Han Dynasty rose to power 206 BCE, 220 CE, the Great Wall grew even longer. Emperor Han Wudi extended it to over 3,700 miles, linking the wall with new trade routes along what became the Silk Road. Now, the wall wasn't just a military defense, it was also a political and economic symbol. Guard posts became hubs of trade, where Chinese silk, spices, and ceramics flowed westward, while horses, glass, and precious stones came from Central Asia, but the cost of construction and maintenance remained staggering. Like the Qin before them, the Han relied on forced labor, and the wall continued to claim lives. Contemporary poems painted it as a place of sorrow and exile. Soldiers stationed in desolate outposts, laborers dying far from home, families broken forever. Yet, despite the suffering, the wall endured as a remarkable feat. The decline, reinvention, and legacy of the world's longest monument, the Ming Dynasty building the wall of bricks and stone. When the Ming Dynasty rose to power in 1368, China faced renewed pressure from the north. The Mongols had ruled under the Yuan dynasty, and though they were expelled, their threat never truly disappeared. The Ming rulers knew the empire's survival depended on strong defenses. Thus began the most ambitious reconstruction of the Great Wall in history. Unlike the earthen walls of the Qin and Han, the Ming version was made from fired bricks, quarried stone, and mortar. This was no mere pile of earth. It was a carefully engineered fortress stretching over 5,500 miles, with walls averaging 23 feet high and 21 feet wide. Strategic watchtowers dotted the wall at regular intervals. Some were square, others circular, rising like stone sentinels against the horizon. Inside, soldiers had rooms for resting, storing weapons, and observing enemy movement. But the real genius of the Ming Wall was its communication system. Towers were linked by sight lines, allowing smoke signals by day and fire beacons by night. In minutes, an alert could travel hundreds of miles, mobilizing reinforcements long before invaders could advance. This was not just a wall, it was a living defense network manned by thousands of soldiers. Life on the Ming Wall, soldiers, sacrifices, and survival. While the wall looked impressive, life for those stationed on it was far less glamorous. Soldiers endured bitter winters, sweltering summers, and endless isolation. Supplies were scarce and morale often low. Food had to be transported across difficult terrain. In remote areas, soldiers farmed the land near their posts to survive. They also collected water in cisterns, rationing every drop. Some lived with families in small nearby villages, while others were posted alone for months. But despite the hardships, soldiers held immense responsibility. They were the empire's first line of defense, watching for enemy raiders, maintaining towers, and manning the beacons. For these men, the wall wasn't just stone, it was their entire world. The Manchu conquest, when the wall failed again. For all its might, even the Ming Wall could not stop history. In 1644, the Manchu clans of the northeast swept past its defenses, capitalizing on corruption, internal betrayal, and weakened Ming authority. According to records, a Ming general, Wu Sangui, opened a gate of the wall, allowing Manchu forces to enter. Betrayal, not brute force, sealed the wall's fate. The Manchu established the Qing dynasty, and for the second time, China was ruled by the very people the wall had been built to repel. With the empire's borders now extending deep into Mongolia, the wall lost its strategic importance. Without constant upkeep, earth eroded, stones collapsed, and bricks were stolen by locals who used them to build homes, farms, and temples. The dragon was falling apart piece by piece. The wall in ruins, decline, and disrepair. By the 18th and 19th centuries, travelers described the Great Wall not as a fortress but as a ruin. Some stretches lay buried under sand, others crumbled into rubble. Nature reclaimed large sections, turning once proud towers into piles of mossy stone. Yet even in ruin, the wall's legend grew. Foreign visitors, traders, and scholars wrote of its staggering length, calling it one of the most impressive man-made structures on Earth. Paradoxically, the wall became more famous in its decay than in its strength. The wall in the modern age, war and survival. The 20th century breathed new life into the wall, but not in the way its builders intended. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 1945, Chinese forces used segments of the wall as defensive positions against the Japanese army. Later, during the Cold War, rumors circulated that parts of the wall were secretly repurposed for military training. Some sections remain restricted to this day, feeding speculation about hidden bunkers or strategic use. But for most of the modern era, the wall's primary role shifted from defense to identity. It became a national symbol of resilience, representing China's enduring strength. UNESCO recognition from fortress to World Heritage. In 1987, the Great Wall was granted UNESCO World Heritage status, officially recognized as one of humanity's greatest cultural achievements. What began as a defensive barrier of mud and stone was now celebrated as a monument of unity and endurance. Tourists began arriving in droves, especially at the most famous sections near Beijing like Badaling and Mutianyu. For many, walking along the wall was not just sightseeing, it was stepping into history. Ironically, the wall that once tried to keep people out now welcomed millions in. The myth of visibility from space. One of the most persistent myths about the Great Wall is that it is the only man-made structure visible from space. In truth, astronauts have repeat